I was sitting in my office, staring blankly at the spreadsheet on my screen when my phone buzzed. A text from Dave. Call me when you get a sec. Something's off. Dave and I had known each other since college. We weren't the kind of friends who texted about small stuff, so I knew this was serious. I pushed my chair back, took a deep breath, and dialed his number. "Hey, man," he answered after the first ring, his voice unusually tense. "Hey. What's going on?" I asked, trying to sound casual even though his tone had already put me on edge. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Dave sighed heavily, and I could hear him pacing. "Look, Alex, I don't really know how to say this, but I've seen Emily with this guy, Sam, a few times lately. It's probably nothing, but they seem close. Like, too close." My heart stuttered in my chest, and for a second, I couldn't speak. I'd never had a reason to doubt Emily, and hearing this felt like a punch to the gut. I cleared my throat, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sam. You mean her new colleague from work?" "Yeah," Dave replied. I wasn't going to say anything, but it's been bothering me. I saw them at lunch the other day, just the two of them, sitting outside this little cafe near her office. I figured, okay, they're coworkers. But then I ran into them again last night, at that bar on 5th. It was late, and they were sitting in a corner, kind of close, you know. I felt like the ground beneath me was starting to crack, but I couldn't let Dave hear that. "You sure? Maybe they're just working late or I don't know, maybe it's nothing." "I thought about that too," Dave said carefully, "but something just felt off. I don't want to make you paranoid, man, but I thought you should know." "You deserve to know." My head was spinning, and I stood up from my desk, walking to the window and staring out at the street below. Emily had mentioned Sam before, but never in a way that made me feel suspicious. She'd come home a few times talking about how he was helping her on a big project, how they were working late to hit deadlines. But that was normal, wasn't it? "Alex, you still there?" Dave's voice broke through my thoughts. "Yeah, I'm here," I muttered, not entirely sure what else to say. "I appreciate it, man. Really, I'm not trying to stir things up," Dave added quickly, "but I figured if it were me, I'd want someone to tell me." "No, I get it," I said, forcing a calmness I didn't feel. "Thanks, Dave. I'll talk to her." We hung up, and I stood there by the window, feeling like my whole world had tilted slightly off its axis. I trusted Emily. We'd been married for 8 years, and though we had our ups and downs like any couple, I never doubted her commitment to us. But now, Dave's words planted seeds of doubt, and no matter how much I tried to ignore them, they grew. That night, I couldn't look at her the same way. When Emily came home, she was her usual self, tired but smiling as she dropped her bag by the door. "Hey, babe. You won't believe the day I had." I tried to focus, tried to act normal, but I couldn't shake the image of her sitting in some dimly lit bar with Sam, leaning in close, laughing, sharing a moment that didn't belong to us. "How was your day?" she asked, coming over to give me a kiss. I stiffened. "Fine," I muttered, leaning away slightly. She noticed. "Everything okay?" I forced a smile, knowing I couldn't bring it up yet. "Not without more." "Yeah, just tired. Tell me about it." She sighed and ran her fingers through her hair. "I've been swamped with this new project. Sam and I had to stay late again last night to go over some reports. Honestly, I'm so done with it." There it was, Sam. His name sat heavy between us. I couldn't help myself. "You guys seem to be spending a lot of time together." Emily looked up, surprised by my tone. "Well, yeah. We're working on the same account. It's a mess right now, and he's one of the only ones who really understands the scope." There was no guilt in her eyes, no sign that she was hiding something. But that didn't stop the knot forming in my stomach. "Dave said he saw you two at a bar last night." "Late." She hesitated for just a second. Oh, yeah, we grabbed a drink after work. It was kind of a debrief after the craziness. I nodded, trying to suppress the questions building inside me. Was that all it was? A debrief? A casual drink? My mind raced back to Dave's words, the picture he painted of them sitting closely together. What was I supposed to do with that? Emily came closer and put a hand on my arm, her touch warm and familiar. Alex, you know you can trust me, right? I wanted to say yes. I wanted to believe her without hesitation, the way I always had. But the doubt was already there, and I didn't know how to shake it. Yeah, I said quietly, but my heart wasn't in it. The smile I gave her felt forced, and I could tell she noticed. She didn't press, though. Instead, she walked to the kitchen to start dinner, humming softly like everything was fine. But everything wasn't fine. The next few days felt like an eternity. The nagging doubts about Emily and Sam twisted in my mind, like an itch I couldn't scratch. I needed to know the truth, but I wasn't about to confront Emily without being certain. I decided to take matters into my own hands. One Friday afternoon, I left work early, my mind racing with the plan. Emily's office was about a 15-minute drive from my place, and I hoped I could catch a glimpse of them together before they noticed me. I parked across the street from her building and watched. The minutes ticked by slowly. I fiddled with the radio, trying to distract myself, but my thoughts kept drifting back to Dave's unsettling observations. Was I really going to find something? Was this just my paranoia getting the better of me? Finally, around 5:30 p.m., I saw Emily walk out of the building. She was talking animatedly to Sam, who had just joined her. They were laughing, genuinely laughing. Emily's eyes sparkled in a way that made my stomach churn. I grabbed my phone and started recording. The camera was shaky at first as I tried to steady my hand. Emily and Sam stood by her car, their conversation lively. Sam's hand brushed against Emily's arm, and she didn't pull away. It was a small gesture, but it felt significant, as if it was a sign of something more. After about 10 minutes, they hugged briefly before getting into separate cars. I stopped recording and tried to calm my racing heart. I had just witnessed what seemed like an intimate moment, but without more context, it was still inconclusive. I needed more. That night, after Emily had gone to bed, I went through her emails. I found a folder labeled Work and opened it. Most of the messages were routine, project updates, meeting requests, but there were a few between Emily and Sam that stood out. They were cordial, discussing work-related matters, but the tone was more personal than I'd expected. I couldn't stop myself from reading them again and again. One email in particular caught my eye, an invitation from Sam to meet after hours to discuss the project in a more relaxed setting. The language was professional, but the invitation was vague. I tried to focus on the evidence I had, but my thoughts kept circling back to Emily's earlier claim. She had said they were just working late, but seeing them together, seeing her smile in that way, it was hard to reconcile with her words. I needed to talk to her, but I wanted to be sure I had all the facts. The next day, I decided to follow Emily again. It was a Saturday, and I knew she had planned to meet Sam to work on a project. I trailed behind them discreetly, trying to stay out of sight. They went to a small cafe and then, after a couple of hours, to a nearby park. As I sat in my car across the street from the cafe, I saw them talking animatedly. Emily's laughter was more frequent, and Sam seemed to be leaning in closer than necessary. I felt a pang of jealousy, mingled with a sense of betrayal. Was I really witnessing an affair? After their meeting, I intercepted Emily as she was about to leave. I approached her under the guise of needing something from the cafe. I caught her just as she was getting into her car. "Hey, Emily," I said, trying to sound casual. "I didn't expect to see you here." She looked surprised, but her smile was quick to reappear. "Oh, hi Alex. I was just working with Sam on that project I told you about." I nodded, trying to read her expression. "I see. How's it going?" It's going well, she said, adjusting her seatbelt. We're making good progress. It's just been a lot of late nights. I guess so, I replied, forcing a smile. I'll let you get going then. As she drove away, I felt a sinking feeling. Emily seemed relaxed and genuine, but how could I trust appearances now? I needed more evidence. The footage and emails were damning, but I couldn't just confront her with half the story. That night, I replayed the footage and went through the emails again. I noticed a pattern in the messages. Sam seemed to always initiate contact, always suggesting they meet to discuss something. It was subtle but persistent. Around midnight, I got a call from Dave. He must have sensed my distress because he asked, "How's it going? Did you find out anything?" "I've seen them together," I admitted, my voice heavy. "I've got footage and emails." "It looks bad, Dave. I don't know what to think." "Alex, if you need anything, support, help, just let me know," Dave said. "But remember, sometimes things aren't what they seem. It's clear you're struggling with this." "I know," I said, though my voice wavered. "I'm trying to piece it all together." After we hung up, I sat in silence, staring at the evidence. Each piece felt like a puzzle I couldn't fully assemble. My trust in Emily was being challenged, and I was on the edge of a precipice, unsure whether to step back or leap into the abyss of confrontation. Tomorrow, I would have to face Emily. I wasn't ready to believe the worst, but I couldn't ignore what I had seen. I needed to confront her with the evidence and hope for the best, or prepare for the worst. I sat at the kitchen table, the morning light filtering in through the blinds, casting long shadows across the room. In front of me were the emails, printed out in black and white, the video on my phone queued up and ready to play. Emily was still asleep upstairs, oblivious to what was about to unfold. I didn't sleep much the night before. My mind had been racing with worst-case scenarios, thoughts of betrayal, lies, and the possibility that our entire marriage had been built on a foundation of trust that now felt paper-thin. Today, I would get my answers, one way or another. When Emily finally came downstairs, she smiled at me, the kind of smile she'd given me 1,000 times before, a smile that now made me second-guess everything. "Morning," she said, walking over to the coffee machine, oblivious to the storm brewing behind me. I didn't respond right away. My heart pounded in my chest as I mentally rehearsed what I was about to say. The silence in the room stretched until she finally turned to look at me, her brow furrowing slightly. "Alex? What's wrong?" she asked, concern creeping into her voice. I cleared my throat, trying to steady myself. "We need to talk." Her expression shifted immediately, from confusion to worry. She put down her coffee mug and walked over to sit across from me at the table. "What is it?" "You're scaring me." I slid the printed emails across the table, my hand trembling slightly. "Explain this." She stared down at the papers in front of her, her eyes scanning the familiar words. I saw her lips part as she processed what I had laid out before her. For a moment, she said nothing, just blinking in disbelief. "Alex." She began, but I cut her off. "And this," I said, turning the phone toward her and pressing play on the video. The screen lit up with the footage of her and Sam standing by her car, laughing, his hand brushing her arm. I watched her face as she saw the moment I'd recorded, the one that had haunted me for days. Her eyes widened, and she looked up at me. "Alex, this isn't what it looks like." I felt a surge of anger rise up in me, my voice shaking. "Then what is it, Emily? You've been spending all this time with him, going out after work, laughing, touching. I trusted you, and this is what you've been doing behind my back." She opened her mouth to speak, but the words didn't come at first. I could see her trying to find the right thing to say, something that would make this all go away. But there was no easy way out. "Alex, listen to me," she said, her voice shaking now. "I swear, nothing has happened. I would never." "Then why hide it?" I interrupted, slamming my hand down on the table. "Why not tell me you've been going out with him, meeting him at bars?" Why keep me in the dark if it's so innocent? I didn't keep you in the dark, she said, her voice cracking. I told you about the project. I told you we've been working late. That's not what this is about, Emily. I snapped, my frustration boiling over. This is about you and him, how close you've gotten, how you're always with him now. Do you know what that looks like? She broke down then, her eyes filling with tears as she reached across the table for my hand. Alex, please, you have to believe me. I know how this looks, but Sam and it's not like that. He's my colleague, that's it. I was afraid you'd misunderstand if I told you about the drinks or the late nights, so I didn't say anything. But I swear, it's never gone beyond work. Her hand trembled as she held mine, and for a moment, I hesitated. Her tears, the look of desperation in her eyes, it tugged at something deep inside me. But the doubts, the fear of betrayal, were louder. I pulled my hand away, standing up abruptly. How am I supposed to believe that? I said, pacing the room. I saw the way you were with him. I've read the emails. How can you expect me to believe this is just work? She stood up too, following me, her voice pleading. Alex, you know me. I would never hurt you like that. I was scared of losing my job, scared of what you'd think. But it's not what you think, I swear. I opened my mouth to say something when my phone buzzed. It was a call from Mark. Normally, I would have ignored it, but something made me answer. Mark, I'm kind of in the middle of something right now, I said, my voice still thick with frustration. Alex, stop. You need to hear this, Mark said urgently. It's about Sam. I froze. What about him? Listen, I didn't want to get involved in this, but I've been hearing things about him at work. He's not just some colleague. Sam's been involved in some shady stuff, and Emily, she's been trying to avoid him. He's been using her, manipulating her. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. What are you talking about? Sam's been blackmailing people, embezzling money from projects. He's got connections at the top, so no one said anything, but Emily's been caught in the middle. She's not involved, Alex. She's been trying to stay out of it, but Sam's been pressuring her. I didn't realize it was this bad, or I would have told you sooner. I stood there, phone in hand, as the world tilted around me. I glanced at Emily, who was watching me with a look of confusion and hope, her tear-streaked face making me feel like the biggest fool in the world. Alex? Mark's voice cut through my daze. You still there? Yeah, I'm here, I muttered, trying to process what he was saying. Are you sure about this? Positive, Mark said firmly. I've got emails, documents. I'll send them over. But trust me, Emily's not the one you should be worried about. I hung up the phone and turned to Emily, who was staring at me, her eyes wide with uncertainty. Sam's been blackmailing you, I said quietly, more of a statement than a question. She nodded slowly, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't know how to tell you. I thought you wouldn't believe me after everything. I collapsed into a chair, my head in my hands, the weight of my own doubts crashing down around me. I had been so sure, so convinced that she had betrayed me, that I hadn't even given her the chance to explain. And now, I realized how blind I had been. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked, my voice hoarse. I was scared, Alex, she whispered. I didn't want to lose you. I didn't want you to think I was involved in any of it. I've been trying to figure out a way to get out of it without dragging you into this mess. I looked up at her, tears brimming in my eyes now too. I should have believed you. I should have trusted you. Emily took a tentative step toward me. We can fix this, Alex. It's not too late. For the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of hope. There was a lot to untangle, and I wasn't sure where we would end up. But I knew one thing, I wasn't going to lose her. Not like this. Let's figure it out together, I said, reaching for her hand. I'm sorry, Emily. I'm so sorry. The following week was a whirlwind of emotions. Emily and I had spent the last few days working through the aftermath of the confrontation. Mark's revelations had turned the tide, but it wasn't enough to simply clear Emily's name. We needed to act fast to address the larger issue, Sam and his illicit activities. With Mark's help, we gathered evidence on Sam's illegal activities, financial records, emails, and witness statements. We compiled everything into a detailed report and handed it over to the authorities. It felt like a small victory, but it was also just the beginning. Emily and I spent long hours talking, unpacking our feelings and the impact of everything that had happened. We attended counseling sessions together, working to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. It was hard work, but we were both committed to seeing it through. One evening, after a particularly intense counseling session, Emily and I sat in the living room, the weight of the day hanging over us. She was curled up on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, while I sat in the armchair across from her, trying to process the day's events. "How are you holding up?" I asked, my voice softer than usual. Emily looked up from her lap, her eyes tired but steady. "It's been a lot. I'm still scared of how everything will turn out, but I feel like we're making progress. You know." I nodded, feeling a pang of guilt. "I know. I've been thinking a lot about how I reacted. I was so quick to jump to conclusions, and I didn't give you a chance to explain." Emily's eyes filled with tears, but she forced a small smile. "I should have told you sooner about what was happening with Sam. I was afraid of losing you, and that fear made me keep secrets that only made things worse." There was a moment of silence as we both reflected on the weight of our mistakes and the effort required to mend what had been broken. Finally, Emily spoke up. "Alex, do you think we can really get through this?" I looked at her, seeing the vulnerability in her eyes and feeling a deep sense of remorse for my earlier accusations. "I want to believe that we can. I know it's going to take time, and it won't be easy. But I'm committed to doing whatever it takes to make things right between us." Just then, the doorbell rang, and Emily and I exchanged a glance. I got up to answer it, and when I opened the door, Mark was standing there with a solemn expression. "Hey, Mark," I said, stepping aside to let him in. "Evening, Alex, Emily," Mark said, his tone respectful but serious. "I just wanted to let you know that Sam has been taken into custody. The authorities are moving forward with the case. It's a relief to know that he can't cause any more damage." Emily and I both let out a collective breath of relief. The weight of uncertainty was finally lifting. "Thank you, Mark," Emily said, her voice filled with gratitude. "I don't know how we would have managed without your help." Mark nodded, his expression softening. "You're welcome. I just wanted to make sure you both knew that the immediate danger is over. Now it's up to you two to heal and move forward." As Mark left, Emily and I stood there in the quiet of our living room, feeling the first real sense of peace in days. "I'm glad this part is over," I said, taking Emily's hand in mine. "But there's still so much work to do. We need to keep talking, keep working on us." Emily nodded, her grip tightening around mine. "I agree. It's going to be a long road, but I'm willing to walk it with you." We sat together in the dim light, the silence comfortable now, filled with unspoken understanding and hope for the future. The journey ahead would be challenging, but we were determined to face it together. In the weeks that followed, we continued to rebuild our relationship. We set aside regular times to check in with each other, ensuring that our communication was open and honest. We also learned to forgive ourselves for our mistakes and to embrace the lessons that had come from this ordeal. One evening, as we sat together on the porch, watching the sun set, I turned to Emily, feeling a profound sense of appreciation. "You know," I said, "it's moments like these that make me realize just how important it is to not take each other for granted." Emily smiled, leaning her head on my shoulder. "Absolutely. I've learned a lot about trust and forgiveness, and I'm grateful we have this chance to make things right." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over us. I knew that while the scars of our ordeal might never fully fade, we had come through stronger and more connected than ever before. It wouldn't be easy, but with each other's support, we were ready to face whatever came next.